At 9 o'clock in the morning, look at the temperature in Plymouth at 12 degrees, but we are barely above freezing towards Scotland and northern England. And as this rain starts to move into that colder air, there will be some snow on its leading edge, especially to the hills of northern England and Scotland. Temperatures recovering during the morning in Northern Ireland with this rain, bit of hill snow for a time. The cold air stays in place, though, across Scotland throughout the day, and it'll be a late recovery in temperatures down the eastern side of England. But we are in the mild air, though, during the afternoon for much of Wales, for the Midlands, southern England and Northern Ireland. So temperatures recovering compared with today. Today, though, we've seen plenty of sunshine. Tomorrow, plenty of cloud. These outbreaks of rain, hill fog around with poor visibility, that big range of temperatures. Now, eventually, after another cold day, Scotland gets into the mild air by Monday morning. So let's look at that change on Sunday night. It comes with some heavy rain for a time in Scotland, still some snow over the hills for a time, but eventually by Monday morning, just about across the board, we're in that mild air, just starting to arrive into Shetland, and many of us are in double figures. So we know it's mild to start Monday, but it's increasingly windy because we have another named storm on the horizon, named by the Met Office Storm Henry to raise awareness of potential impacts. It looks like gales or severe gales across the board for the UK on Monday, so becoming very windy again. But the strongest winds will be the closer you are to Storm Henry, and that's in Scotland, especially northern Scotland, where already there is a Met Office amber be prepared warning for gusts of wind up to 90 miles per hour later on Monday night and into the first part of Tuesday, and that again brings the prospect of some travel disruption. We'll update you on Storm Henry as we go through Sunday, so keep watching our forecast. There are weather warnings then for that, and in the short term for snow and ice. Details online.
Hello, this is BBC News with me, Adam Parsons. It's 29 minutes to 9. Here are the headlines. At least 39 migrants, several of them children, have drowned trying to reach Europe in the latest boat disaster in the Aegean Sea. Aid agencies say 16 more people have starved to death in the besieged Syrian city of Madaya, adding hundreds more are at risk. The warning comes as peace talks open in Geneva. A British helicopter pilot has been shot and killed by elephant poachers in Tanzania. Roger Gower was taking part in an anti-poaching operation when the criminals he was tracking fired on his aircraft. A new study suggests proton beam therapy causes fewer severe side effects in child cancer patients than conventional radiotherapy. Now on BBC News, Talking Business.
Hello from New York. I'm Michelle Fleury here on Madison Avenue, the street synonymous with the golden age of advertising and once home to its titans. But in the digital world, are the industry's best days over? That's what we'll be discussing on this week's Talking Business. Welcome to the programme. Today we're looking at advertising in the digital age and where the dollars to get your dollars are being spent. Here's one graph that lays it all out. The advertising market is seeing a shift from TV to digital. As you can see from this forecast, spending on TV ads in the United States is expected to continue to grow over the next few years. Now look at the trajectory of digital ad spending. In the past 12 months, it's jumped 15%. And from 2017, it's predicted to outpace spending on traditional TV ads. So is that it? Are the days of Mad Men over? The TV series that immortalised the heyday of television advertising? To answer that question with me are Brent Smart, the Chief Executive of Saatchi & Saatchi, the advertising agency in New York. Torrance Boone, you join us from Google. You're VP for Global Agency Sales and Services. And Torrance, you're responsible for driving Google's worldwide strategy with marketing and with advertising agencies. So I don't know if you've met Brent before. Finally, Sebastian Tomic from the New York Times. Sebastian, you're Senior VP of Advertising and Innovation, and you lead the T-Brand Studio, which is the New York Times' in-house creative agency. Now, Brent, or really this is a question for all of you, but if I could start with you, Brent. What does advertising look like today?
Well, it's almost unrecognisable in some ways from when I started in the business, but I think we spend so much time talking about what's different. You know, technology, data, social media, all these things that are different, but you know, there are some things that I think are absolutely the same, and that is the power of a story. And since we used to sit around fires, you know, human beings have always been drawn to stories. The brain craves stories, and I think, you know, great advertising has always been about great storytelling, and it's still about great storytelling. There's just so many new ways we can tell those stories, and so many ways we can actually let people into those stories and be part of those stories, and that's what I think is really exciting about being in advertising today.
You, Torrance, obviously represent the new world in a way. You work for Google. I mean, how has advertising changed?
Well, I think Brent hit on a number of critical points. For us, we think of the current situation as, in many ways, the second renaissance in advertising. And for us, the fact that you have an explosion of ad formats, you have massive fragmentation of media channels, you have data, which is incredibly important in terms of being able to target consumers in a really customized way. These are all pretty significant and seismic shifts. The other interesting point is that today consumers can actually choose and are choosing to watch advertising.
What do you think advertising looks like today?
Well, you know, I think that digital, which is really interesting, is the first medium that doesn't have a defined format. I mean, you think about outdoor advertising, you think billboards, you think broadcast, 30-second spots, 60-second spots. In print, you know, you have a right-hand page. In digital, advertising can come in all shapes and sizes. And, you know, comparing that to what I do, 5 years ago, if I would have told you that the New York Times would have a creative agency within its own walls that would be helping advertisers tell stories as advertising, you'd say I was crazy. So not only has the business shifted completely now, but I think even 5 years, 10 years from now, it's going to look completely different.
One of the things that we're doing a lot of is just experimentation around what actually works and what drives the impact that brands are looking for. And we had a great campaign and process that we ran with BBDO to basically figure out for Mountain Dew what length of ad and what format would actually perform best on mobile. And it was actually really surprising results. The longer form execution was what actually performed better.
But I mean, have people really changed that much? Because it sounds like you're saying they want to watch adverts, and I'm not sure that's necessarily true.
I think people don't care about advertising, and people don't care about brands. And I think marketers are kidding themselves if they think they do. Quality is the key. There is so much content out there, and the thing we hear from every consumer is, I've got no time. I've got no time, and yet there's never been more content. So in a world where there's so much content, so little time, only the great stuff gets watched, only the great stuff gets shared, only the great stuff gets talked about. And I think that is the challenge, because we don't need more content. Now, it's pollution. We do not need more content, but the great stuff will always find an audience, always.
The age of smartphones has left us all with such short attention spans. I mean, even a goldfish can hold a thought for longer. So how do you come up with an ad given all of our short attention spans?
That's an important point, because quality today, I think, is as much about relevance and responsiveness as it is around, you know, quality of content or thematic types of things that you would pursue in order to tell a story. And we have this notion of micro moments. To your point, mobile devices have totally transformed the way that we interface with brands and advertising. And so ads that actually deliver utility in the moment, when you're on the street looking for retail establishments nearby, when you're in the actual retail establishment actually looking and researching for information on a specific product, brands that are there and that are responsive, I think, are the ones that are breaking through.
I think where advertising has unrivaled power is, what about the person who doesn't know what they want, who 6 months from now are going to buy that product or engage that brand maybe. I think we can sort of, you know, just embed a feeling, a bit of meaning, move them in some way that then in 6 months' time, when suddenly they are in the customer journey to buy that product, they're more likely to buy it. And I still think advertising is the killer app for that. I still think, you know, nothing else works in that way.
Basically anything can be media. You know, if your product is great and people are talking about it, that becomes your ad campaign. And I think it actually ties back to your previous question about mobile. This has essentially enabled anyone to be your advocate. So, you know, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, that's on everyone's phone. And the minute they have an interaction with a product, they have the chance to essentially become your own personal media company, your own ad agency.
And there are also all of these new ad formats. So we have the TrueView ad format on YouTube, which actually allows you to skip if the ad isn't compelling. So to your point, actually making sure that you grab that consumer, that you have the right headline, that you have that right entry point is critical. And because people can actually skip ads now, brands are coming to us because from an efficiency perspective, it makes a lot of sense. If people are actually choosing to watch that ad through its entirety, that means that they're engaged with the brand and ready for that kind of interaction.
I mean, you're hitting on something that I think is kind of interesting, that you know, companies like Google have said we're no longer in the interruption model of advertising, it's now engagement, and yet you spend a lot of time interrupting my YouTube video with some pre-roll. And so like
well, we're moving, but again, if you look at the mix, we see much more of a shift toward opt-in TrueView ad format. So I think the days of forced pre-rolls are numbered.
What is YouTube, which is associated not necessarily with brands traditionally? I mean, what are you telling customers?
Well, I think there's massive innovation on the YouTube platform, and the way that we think about it is the asset base represented by our content creators. So you have these incredibly creative people who have loyal fan bases, who have an incredibly engaged audience, and what we see brands doing, and their agencies are critical partners in this, is leveraging that fandom against those content creators to make really meaningful connections with brands.
If I look at my house, I've got 3 young boys, and you know, the guys they interact with on YouTube, to them, are way more famous than anyone that Nickelodeon or ABC wants to serve up as a celebrity. They don't even know who those people are. You know, it's the YouTube stars, or who they spend their time with, who they mimic in terms of the way they talk, and they're the stars in my house for my kids. And so the whole notion of celebrity has changed, and it's very much not kind of a grassroots, bottom-up celebrity now, which I think is really, really interesting. And we didn't have that 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You know, the obituary for the advertising agency has been written many times. But I think what's interesting is you just mentioned, you know, these YouTube content creators, they put their viewers first. Yes. You at the Times put your readers first. At Facebook, they put Facebook users first. Advertising agencies, we put the brand first. Always. We do what's right for the brand.
Thank you all for now. Coming up later in the programme, we'll delve deeper into the ad industry's changing business model. But first, in this week's Talking Point, comedy consultant Colm O'Regan speaks to a world-famous brand about viral ads back in the day.
Hello, I'm Colm O'Regan. And since this week we're talking about advertising, I only have a very short period of time to grab your attention. That's why I'm standing in front of a fish cycling a bike. I'm at the Guinness Museum here in Dublin because if there's one brand whose advertising has evolved over the years but still managed to capture the public imagination, it is Guinness. This exhibit behind me is, funnily enough, called Fish on a Bicycle, part of an advertising campaign that ran over 20 years ago. The premise of the ad was that a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Now, what has that got to do with creamy pints of Guinness? Nothing, of course, but it got us all talking. The day after the ad was broadcast, people would say, "Did you see the ad last night? Which one? The one with the fish on the bicycle. What was it for? Oh, I think it was for Guinness." Advertisers' job done. That was the thing about Guinness ads. They were viral before anyone knew what viral was.
At Guinness, we have an ethos of trying to do things differently from the way that other people do them. Now with digital, again, some of those principles are the same, that we have to be able to tell interesting stories and stories that will make people sit up and pay attention, but we have so many more different formats to do it. That story now appears in your Facebook newsfeed, maybe when you're searching for beer or rugby on Google, our story will pop up.
Of course, time waits for no ad man, so how does a global brand like Guinness make smarty pants ads that grab the attention in the modern digital advertising era?
You know that moment when you click on a film on YouTube, an ad comes up and you've got 5 seconds to decide whether you're going to want to watch the rest of that ad or click to go through to the film that you were choosing. That means we've got to make a Guinness film that in that first 5 seconds gives you enough interest and excitement that you're going to watch the whole thing.
But what about the future of digital advertising? Is it going to become more and more targeted? Will we be able to walk down the street without ads popping up in our faces? How are we going to block those?
A much more valuable and satisfying future is where you're walking down the street and the available ads are targeted only at the current intent that you have. So rather than seeing a lot of different ads and being intruded upon, you see 1 or 2 ads that reflect your current intent. And a knowledge of your intent gleaned from an analysis of, say, your online activity is one very strong source of that. Every time we use our smartphone, we express our current intent. So if those signals can be harnessed in such a way that advertisers can target their ads at people whose intent aligns with their products, the future is now.
Whatever the future, advertising needs to be transparent about its intentions and definitely not full of subliminal messages.
But I'm determined not to let that happen in my report.
Colm O'Regan there, touching on advertising in a digital world of data and algorithms. And remember, you can see more of his short films on our website, bbc.com/talking business. Now, Brent, if I can ask you, how much has the traditional advertising model changed in today's digital world?
Oh, hugely, hugely. I mean, if you go back to the heyday of advertising agencies, we used to make one television ad that would air all year and basically make money on the media commission to run that ad. It was incredibly profitable. Now we need to make incredibly complicated programs for clients. You know, we've talked about the many different formats with which we can now advertise. And so like the idea of making one thing, broadcasting it to many and sitting back and kind of getting media commission is gone. So now we've got to find a way to how do we make more content, because we've got, you know, incredibly content hungry consumers and content hungry, you know, clients.
But you also face a lot more competitors. You're
Yes.
sitting
Yeah.
next to two.
Yes, yeah, that's true too. I mean, or you could say collaborators. And I really think it's how you look at it, because yeah, we compete in some ways, but then again, I've seen, you know, incredible things happen when we collaborate, because, you know, these guys can bring something to one of my ideas that I just can't do myself. We got to really, you know, go to a bit more of an open model where we're happy to collaborate and partner with different people who all bring something to the idea.
I mean, Torrance, you're Google's point person in some ways with between Google and advertising agencies. So obviously you're going to talk up collaboration, but is it really, or I mean, surely you're trying to also grab your slice of the pie?
Well, we believe that the best way of grabbing our slice of the pie is collaborating to convince brands that digital at the center of these campaigns that they're creating with their advertising agencies is a smart strategy. If you think about platforms like the Android platform or YouTube, which we've talked a lot about, but also new technology like Cardboard and the things that we're doing with 360 video, these are really complicated products, and so having expertise that we can bring to the table so that agencies, brands can understand the possibilities associated with those products, it's a win-win.
It's the Super Bowl is coming up. It's a massive sporting event. It's also a huge event in the advertising world, traditionally for TV ads. What opportunities or how significant is it for Google and for platforms like yours?
Incredibly important. So we have a program called AdBlitz, which is actually a platform that we use. It's a voting platform that enables viewers of the Super Bowl ads to actually vote on their favorite ad. And then that has all sorts of implications in terms of promotion across the platform to make sure that they get the biggest bang for that investment.
It's like the water cooler on steroids, right? Because everyone's watching the game, everyone's watching the ads, everyone's talking about the ads. And if you do something great in that forum, then it lights up every other channel. It lights up mobile, it lights up Twitter, it lights up Facebook, you know, and it becomes this sort of incredible thing for brands where it's not just a spot, but it's a really powerful sort of, you know, entire marketing program from one spot.
You know, we started at the beginning of the show talking about the era of Mad Men.
Yeah.
Is today the era of the nerd?
Era of the geek. I think geeks are cooler than nerds. No, I think it's interesting when you think of Mad Men. You think of this super suave Don Draper, kind of whining and dining clients off to the country
Martini
club.
lunches.
Martini lunches. I think that no matter what type of transition we go through, advertising is still a relationship business, and that's never going to go away. Even if there's two machines buying and selling advertising from one another, there's people behind it who are making the relationships. But when we talk about creative technologists, you know, the marketers that we work with, they don't need anybody else to take them to a steak lunch. You know, they don't need me to take them to the Super Bowl. They want to hear about great ideas. They want to sit across the table from someone who understands their business, who can talk about new technology, who can come up with creative ideas on the fly. So I think that really marks the shift. Like, we are going through a bit of a talent renaissance. We had a recent experience where a client brought in Google and Facebook during the sort of ideation exercise, so brainstorming, coming up with an idea. And I was thinking about it, like, what better creative strategy than the troves of data that Facebook and Google have? I mean, they know everything about everyone. And the one thing that came to mind, though, was we had a publisher, we had a technology company, and we had the client. There wasn't an agency in the room. And right there, I was thinking, like, where is the future of advertising heading? You know, no one in this industry has a distribution monopoly anymore. Like, I mean, Google and Facebook have the closest thing to it, but really no one owns that. So really the only thing that separates us, and I mean this for the value of a creative agency, is a great idea. And that's it. I mean, this is an ideas economy.
I mean, I'm going to go back to this idea of technology. When I go onto a website nowadays, you usually pretty much always see a sign that says cookies are used on this website. At some point, as we've seen with ad blocking, technology comes along to maybe remove that. What replaces that? Because it has been very valuable to Google and other firms in terms of gathering data on consumers' tastes and habits.
Well, I don't think that we're at a point where we can necessarily say that it will be replaced. I mean, I think even though ad blocking is a phenomenon, we are not seeing it have mammoth implications for our business. But it has raised the point that you're making, which is, and I think we've all been saying in our discussion, is how do you get to a standard of quality such that people don't feel like they want to filter advertising, or they don't feel like it's advertising at all, they feel like it's content.
Can that point ever be achieved?
Yes.
I think absolutely. I mean, I think...
I don't.
You think people still have to advertise, let's be clear. Like, not all advertising will be storytelling in the future. You have to sell products.
I just don't think we're ever going to get to a point where everything's good.
Yeah,
I think there's always going to be a bunch of
absolutely
mediocre, average stuff that wastes my time.
But it's opt-in. You're not forced to watch it.
The best ad blocker ever invented is the human brain. Right. Yeah. Because the human brain has an incredible ability to filter out the thousands and thousands of messages that we keep throwing at it every single day.
And how do you make sure that the consumer is seeing it and not a bot or not endless other kind of hackers, or actually that brands are able to reach the consumers and actual people that they want to?
Yeah, I mean, again, that's a technology problem, and it's a big one, but I think we have a leadership position in making sure that the ads that we serve are actually reaching the people that brands want them to reach.
But in the end, is data king here?
No. Creativity is king. The best idea wins. I think data can be an enhancement of a great idea. You know, I fundamentally believe, at least in our team, we make big decisions based on our gut and small decisions based on data.
I think that creativity and the centrality of the idea will always rule the day in terms of that interface with consumers, but I do think that data plays a tremendously valuable role.
We're pretty much out of time, so I have one more question for each of you. Are we in a post-advertising world?
Well, I'm out of a job if we are, so no.
Torrance?
I think it's how you define advertising. I think what we've all agreed on is it's more about content. It's more about content and engagement experiences and utility. I think the definition of advertising is changing dramatically.
No, definitely not. And I think that, at least mostly in my world, people can confuse dissatisfaction with standard digital interruptive advertising with dissatisfaction for advertising in general. I think to kind of old models of broadcast. I think about kind of the Vogue September issue and billboards. There are a lot of, even in social actually, Google and Facebook, there are a lot of ad models where if I had the choice of ads or no ads, I would choose it. I would choose ads. I mean, it's a necessary part of culture.
We really are going to have to leave it there. My thanks to all our guests. If I could start with you, Sebastian Tomic, thank you very much. Torrance Spoon and Brent Smart.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, next week on Talking Business, we'll be in Johannesburg, where Lerato Mbele will be discussing youth unemployment in South Africa. From now, though, goodbye from New York.
Hello, Storm Henry is on the way. More about that in a moment. As Storm Gertrude pulled away, it pushed in cold air across the UK. You see some blizzards, Highland and Grampian, Scotland, but we've also had some sunshine too. This was Snapper Simon's Weather Watcher view across Shropshire today. So some welcome blue sky, a clear, crisp Arctic air into the UK. Blizzards have continued though into the high ground of Scotland into this evening. Eventually they'll begin to fade along with the wind through the night. Watch out for ice on untreated surfaces. Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales after today's wintry showers with temperatures close to freezing. Lower than that where you have the deepest snow cover in Scotland, but rain coming into southwest England, parts of Wales, Northern Ireland going into Sunday morning. Tomorrow looks very different. Eventually it'll feel different too because milder air is coming in with this wet weather. So 9 o'clock in the morning and already at 12 degrees in Plymouth. As that rain starts to feed into the colder air, though, there'll be some snow on its leading edge. The hills particularly, parts of northern England, especially into Scotland, maybe Northern Ireland for a time. But here temperatures heading up during the morning. Scotland will stay in the cold air throughout the day. It's quite a raw day to come here with some patchy outbreaks of rain, sleet and snow around. So let's go on through the rest of the day then. So compared with today's sunshine and showers, tomorrow it is cloud. There'll be outbreaks of rain. It's not going to be raining everywhere all the time. That rain patchy in nature. Hill fog, so poor visibility. Temperatures though gradually recovering from the southwest. So into the afternoon, more of us getting back into double figures. Late recovery in temperature across eastern England. And as I've mentioned, in Scotland, you stay in the cold air. Now that things will change for you as we go through Sunday night and into Monday with another spell of quite heavy rain across Scotland. Eventually it'll turn milder here and the winds are starting to pick up too. So this is how we start Monday morning. I've mentioned the winds. They're very important because it's all part of Storm Henry on the way. Now, it's named today by the Met Office. It's all part of a plan to raise awareness of weather coming by naming storms which may well have a substantial impact on the UK's weather. We are going to, on Monday, see gales or severe gales developing widely, rain spreading southeast, then sunshine and showers again as it turns colder once again. But all the while through Monday, the winds strengthen, especially in Scotland and especially in northern Scotland with the Met Office amber be prepared warning, where we're likely to see some gusts in excess of 80 miles per hour in the most exposed spots, maybe up to 90 miles per hour. And of course, those are disruptive winds lasting through Monday night, perhaps into the first part of Tuesday as well. We're going to keep you updated on Storm Henry's progress and the potential impacts on the UK. There are weather warnings in force at the moment, as I've mentioned. All those details at BBC Weather Online.
There are places like no other, where the beautiful meets the bizarre. Places that hold the key to evolution itself.
It's like suddenly going back 3 million years.
Join Richard Fortey on a journey around our strangest natural islands.
Just extraordinary creatures. They take the leaf so delicately.
He's finding out where it all began.
Where evolution is still in action.
The new series Islands of Evolution continues with Madeira, Monday at 9 on BBC 4.
Coming up next, World News Today takes a look at the latest global stories, followed by this week's Our World at 9:30. And a detailed forecast in weather for the week ahead at 5 to 10.
This is